This episode of Fuel for the Soul is powered by ASICS. Head over to asics.com and sign up for a one ASICS account. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you will receive 10% off your first purchase. You'll also gain access to exclusive colorways on asics.com, free standard shipping, special birthday month discounts, and more.
Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Megan with Believe in the Run.
And this is Megan with Featherstone Nutrition.
AKA Feathers. And I think we should just get rid of the nutrition because at this point you're like a big enough brand that people know if you say Feathers, it means nutrition.
Interesting. Yeah.
I hope so, but I don't know if everybody does yet, T.
Yeah.
I'll ask the audience if I said, hey, Feathers is coming, or hey, this nutrition plan was provided by Feathers, would you be like, yeah, that's Megan Featherston?
I think anyone listening to this would clearly understand that concept, but maybe outside of this, I don't know. Well, we'll have to see.
And I'm Megan Featherston with feathers. Like, that's what you want me to say?
No,
or you want me to say, I'm
like,
Feathers?
I'm Feathers. Yeah.
No introduction needed. Yeah. You know, like Beyonce, it's just one word. Everyone knows.
Beyonce,
I think you should start
Madonna,
wearing
Cher.
bird costumes. Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, Halloween is coming up.
Yeah. We could all be pigeons.
Are you dressing up?
No, I don't think so. I bought a skeleton costume and I put it on last night. It's like a onesie, you know, that has like bones on it. And Sloan was in the shower and I walk up to the shower door and I was like, what do you think? She goes, oh, no, Mom, that looks ridiculous. That does not look like you. So it's going back.
You got to love her honesty.
I appreciate it because I wasn't sure either. I looked in the mirror. I was like, nah. Because you guys know how tall I am, right? So like the pelvis of the skeleton was like half of my torso. Like it didn't work.
So skeleton, we had a lady run Baltimore in a full dragon costume.
Thomas can't stop talking about it.
I was impressed. Like a 3:30 in a full costume with a mask.
Oh, wow. Was she drippy?
It's the mask coverage that I was like, that's too much sweat and stuff.
Yeah, Ooh. It was insane. And I was checking everybody's sweat. And I was like, certain people, I was like, man, you barely sweat. And other people were like, look like they had been in a shower.
You've been hanging around me too long. These are the things I look at.
All right, now that we've completely gone off the rails as always, let's talk about, we have two sponsors for this week. The first one is RNWY, spelled RNWY. Megan, talk to us about this product.
RNWY is a newer company, which we've talked about their collagen a lot. Their newest product is their protein, which is a vegan protein, plus creatine. So I know Thomas and I have both tried it. It's got a very smooth finish for a vegan protein. It's not gritty or clumpy, if you will. Like it's top notch for sure. And just this past week, we gave away a Ninja Creamy with the RNWY acai flavored protein powder. Yeah, you forgot to enter.
Why didn't you give that to us?
I'm not allowed to rig things like that.
You're like, wow, that was a coincidence.
The woman who won it was like stoked. She was so excited. So hopefully she'll post some things on that. But it makes a wicked smoothie bowl. Whether you have a Ninja Creamy or not, you know, you can also use your blender. But there's a recipe up on featherstonenutrition.com of how we did it, whether you have a blender or a Ninja Creamy. And it was a delicious change for breakfast.
I've been using the chocolate. And I have to say, you didn't tell me for a while that it was vegan, and I don't read. So I didn't notice the difference between that and like a whey protein. Awesome. The nice thing is it does dissolve like completely, like there was no clumps in the bottom or anything like that. And now I'm kind of addicted to creatine because I didn't know I needed it. And now I'm kind of like, I like this stuff.
Good. You getting swole over there?
I wouldn't call it swole, but I'm doing all right.
And so regardless if someone has a creamy machine or whatever, and they just want to purchase some RNWY, how do they get it and how do they save?
You can go to their website and use the code FEATHERS15 to save 15%. And then it is also on the feed now. The code just won't work on there. So you could get it there. And maybe Amazon? Don't quote me on that.
And you said, like, even if you don't have a creamy, I just have been using like a blender bottle. You know, like that little shaky shake. And it works fine.
That works great. Definitely.
All right. The other sponsor we have to chat about real quick is Cheribundi. And if you listen to the drop, you've heard us talk about this a lot, but they just came out with gummies, which I absolutely love, like, that's the form of anything I want to take is gummy
They're
form.
candies.
Yeah.
Look.
It's like, yeah.
Which is weird. I would never think of you as like a candy person. But if it's like has a nutrition value, you eat it just like candy.
Yeah, and so I have been taking these before bed, and honestly, it's because I ran out of melatonin, and so I was just using these instead, and it was nice. I feel like I fell right to sleep, and I know it does have properties that help with sleep, but it also helps with recovery. And what else are the benefits of taking these cherries?
Yeah, it helps with muscle recovery is the most. Like it decreases inflammation so that we can, recover our muscles a little faster is the biggest thing, but it can help with sleep. I agree with you. I think the gummies are a hit. I have a lot of people who travel and they don't always pack like a check luggage, and they've gotten their Cheribundi taken away, the bottles, right? Or the packets, like if they have too much liquid. So I have a couple people that like jumped on these gummies for travel reasons. And I agree with you. I am much more likely to pop 2 to 4 gummies than to drink a bottle of juice, which is so silly, but it's true.
Yeah, and so the feed actually has these in the 4 packs, like the travel
So if you
sample
wanted to
pack.
taste it, yeah.
So if you aren't sure if you want them and you want to try it, go to thefeed.com. Our code doesn't work there, but you can try it and then purchase from their website. But if you are already sold and you want to go get them, you can go to cheribundi.com and then use the code FUEL at checkout, and that'll save you 20%.
And I would just do that. Like, you're going to like them. Go ahead and get them.
My kids are obsessed with them too. I have to hide them. I have to hide them on a tall shelf, so they have to ask for them.
Yeah.
They'll be gone.
They're delicious. I get it.
They are good.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive into, we've got a bunch of listener questions today, so let's just go ahead and dive into them. Our first one is from Kendall Roos, and she said, huge fan of the podcast. Thank you for all the insight and humor you provide on my long runs and sometimes at home when I'm hiding from my kiddos behind my AirPods. I'm addicted to pre-workout. Sounds like you. I'm talking about the garbage for you blue razzmatazz flavor, 300 milligrams of caffeine style pre-workout.
I don't have this.
You have pre-workout?
No, I have. Gainful sent me a mix. It just has like some hydration and something else, but I forget. what it is.
But I know exactly what she's talking about because my brother had this too. She said, I've been using a pre-workout off and on for years. I typically work out first thing in the morning, wake up at 4:15. Wow. Eat my grams and pre-workout and try to be working out by 5 a.m. I know it's terrible for my overall health and I have tried stopping multiple times. This summer I tried drinking coffee instead. This worked okay for long runs, but it just didn't cut it for higher intensity
Wait, why is it
workouts.
bad for you?
Note, I also drink a lot of coffee during the day. I don't tend to get any withdrawal symptoms like headaches. When I stop using it, I just keep wanting it. Are there any safer alternatives or ideas for getting the pre-workout buzz without putting literal garbage in my body? Since listening to your podcast, I have started looking for options that are USP or NSF certified, but I know that does not necessarily solve the problem. Any advice is appreciated. So is this stuff literal garbage?
This is so good, Kendall. So good. Like, I think there's probably so many people that didn't have the guts to say exactly what, and I actually cut some of it out because it was even longer, and she just had me in hysterics. I was like, we have to answer this for her because I'm sure there's other people wondering the exact same thing. So the term pre-workout covers so many different things. So part of it is like defining the type of pre-workout she's talking about. She's talking about the like super high caffeine, super high stimulants, like all sorts of different additives to it, the things that have been popular for the last like 10 to 15 years, right? But now we're seeing other pre-workouts, probably what Thomas is talking about. I know there's some other companies that have them that's more of like an electrolyte or maybe like beta alanine or like a couple things that we know actually can help performance and not ridiculous amounts of caffeine, right? So the term pre-workout could cover a million different things, but we're specifically talking about these pre-workouts that are not NSF certified, not informed for sport, and have just a lot of additives and a significant amount of caffeine. Like I think we all know.
Like, would these be sold next to the
brands those are.
5-hour energy? Like if I was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they originated, which I cut this part from the question because it got so long, but they originated in more of like the bodybuilding community, CrossFit, the high interval intensity training, that type of stuff. Like that would be you could buy your thing of pre-workout as you left and take it before each one of those higher intensity workouts. Like that's kind of the culture that it was kind of brought up around a little bit more than running.
So it sounds like a same customer for ketone.
Fast forward to this day and age, it's possible. So the goal of a lot of these pre-workouts was to boost energy, increase alertness, enhance performance. So they often contain a ton of different ingredients. So just like we've talked about before, most of these pre-workouts are supplements and they're not FDA regulated. And when you really look at the FDA's website, which I dove into, a lot of the more dangerous side effects from undeclared additives are coming from pre-workouts. So if we scoot back a few years, which I'm wondering if Kendall is around, maybe Meg's age or a little bit younger, this would put her in the point of when she first started using pre-workout. It used to contain something called DMAA, which was an amphetamine derivative. So people were having heart issues and heart attacks. And so they banned DMAA from being in pre-workouts. But as we know, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not getting into some of these pre-workouts still, right? So it's an amphetamine, right? It's a crazy stimulant. So it increases blood pressure, increases your heart rate, obviously increases your risk of heart problems and heart attacks if you're, have something going on. So while it's illegal, it is still being found. Like I looked through the FDA's website, like they are still quote unquote busting brands for it being in there. So if she's saying coffee's not cutting it, other things aren't cutting it, it really does make me wonder if that's what she was feeling and that's not there anymore, to be completely honest. Yeah.
Is this almost like you get addicted, like a stimulant addiction almost? Because
that would make sense. That would make perfect sense. And amphetamines are addictive. So I do wonder if that's because if she's not feeling like technically, if you're getting a boost from caffeine, you're going to feel it from coffee. You're going to feel it from just energy drink or, something like that. So the fact that she's like, nothing else is hitting me the same way makes me wonder if whatever she was taking had this product.
Can you ask her what she's taking?
I knew Thomas would want this.
Just for scientific purposes, so we know.
As I was looking it up, I was like, T's going to try to get his hands on this. I know it. So, I would hope that it's less common that this is making its way into these things because I'm pretty sure, don't quote me, I think it was banned in like 2015. So it's been banned for a while. So hopefully it's not in a lot of pre-workouts now. But the other thing to look for, if you are taking a pre-workout and now you're like, oh, shoot, like, how do I evaluate it? The things to look for is if it says something like, proprietary blends, because then you don't know how much of the things that they're adding are in there. So maybe it's listing what's in there, but you have no clue how much it is. So you could be getting 100 milligrams of caffeine. You could be getting 400, which is not safe to be doing every single day before we work out or run. Not great for our heart. So that would be the first thing to look for. A lot of these supplements contain caffeine, obviously. Some of them will contain beta-alanine, which helps delay fatigue when we're working out, but it can also cause a tingling in our hands and our feet. And if we take too much of it, flushing, like our face gets red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tried that. What was it? What
some
were we
people
trying
don't like
that
that.
had that in it?
It's probably pre-workout.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was, no, it was just
straight beta-alanine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there are some really good research studies on that, but you have to weigh right? Like who wants their hands and feet tingling?
Well, I think we got tingly and it was like uncomfortable. So we both stopped.
Yeah. It is for a lot of people. Yeah. So that would be a thing. There's creatine in some of it, which we know is safe. There's sertraline, which helps increase nitric oxide, which we know like beets, right? So we're delivering more oxygen to our blood. So a lot of times it's not just caffeine in a pre-workout. It could be other things that are also helping. And not to say that's necessarily a bad thing, right? We know that some of these things might actually help, but when it is disguised as a proprietary blend, we just don't know what we're getting, right? So the one thing that we might want to look at is go onto the websites of NSF for sport and then Informed Sport, and you can actually search. There's a search bar, and you just put in pre-workout, and NSF brought up 2, and then Informed Sport brought up 11. So there's 13 pre-workout supplements that are indeed certified as quote unquote safe, or what's in there is actually in there. There's nothing that isn't supposed to be in there. There's no undeclared DMAA in there. So if you really are interested in finding a pre-workout, I would very much recommend that you go to those websites and find something that's certified.
It's so crazy that in 2024, like it's fine to just make a powder with crazy stuff in it that you don't even know and sell it and like, what?
Why are we all doing it though?
Yeah.
Like, why don't we have a bottle of something?
You know what's funny? Just yesterday, something popped up on Instagram, and it was another influencer that had their own supplement line. And same thing crossed my mind. I was like, I mean, not that we do not want to get into that. Don't get me wrong,
No.
but it just made me laugh because I was like, who doesn't have a supplement line these days?
I
Like, it's
know.
getting a little out of control. Yeah.
It's like all the actors and actresses or singers that created like a makeup line or a jewelry line. All the endurance influencers have a supplement line.
And actors all have alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like
It's true. I did have somebody come to me and tell me, like, you could make a killing in your space by creating a supplement line. And I was like, I don't want to make a killing off supplements.
Yeah.
Like, that does not mesh with what I'm here to do and talk about. So,
well, that's like Nick Bear. I think he's doing just fine.
right.
He's definitely doing just fine.
No, there's a lot of money in it. I just ethically not doing it.
So if Kendall really doesn't want to stop the pre-workout, the best option is to go check out one of those 13 that are certified.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that would make sense. Yeah. And then, the other thing that if you're nerdy like we are, like diving into like what's actually helping you. Do you like the caffeine? Do you like the beta alanine? Do you like the creatine? Like, instead of using one of these uncertified supplements, maybe you find just those individual ingredients. And I know it's hard to know like which one is impacting it, but you could try and see, like, maybe you don't need to take the pre-workout. Maybe you just need a certain amount of caffeine and creatine or, whatever it happens to be from the mix. So you could look at like single supplements for that too.
Yeah, but it's probably, I'm going to guess.
Definitely the stimulant.
It's definitely the illegal part.
I'm going to guess though that it's also like a nice little treat. Like you're giving, if it's one of them little bottles or one of those little things, you get like that little sugar, even if it's like not a sugar base, but that little sweet hit with it's almost like okay, it's time to work out kind of message to your brain.
And blue razzmatazz, I mean, who doesn't like a good blue raspberry flavor? So, sounds lovely, Kendall.
Yeah, it's so funny. I do remember my brother definitely had that flavor.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what is Raz? It was like, I don't know if it was razzmatazz, but it was something like that.
Was he mixing it or was it coming in a little?
It was like a powder thing, and you just pour it in some water and chug it.
Oh.
I think we're over dry scooping pre-workout, but there was a phase for a while where all the bros were just literally hitting the powder to the mouth and headed to the gym. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, almost like Kool-Aid powder. Yeah.
That sounds
Pixie
fantastic.
Sticks. Sounds awful.
Yeah. All right. So, Kendall, I hope that you find one that works for you that is not the crazy stuff.
But thank you for your awesome question, your honesty,
Yes.
and giving us all some humor.
Yes. Very much appreciated. Okay. Our next question comes from Jamie Cordes. Cordes? I don't know.
You want
Sorry,
some help? How is it spelled?
Cordes.
Chords.
Is it Cordes or is it Cordes?
I feel like Ez would have a Z on the end. I don't know, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't ask me.
Okay. All right, Jamie. Megan and Megan. Wow, spelled both correctly. That's solid. I met you both at the Columbus ASICS run this summer. Thank you for visiting C-Bus. Come back for the marathon sometime. I've been using eGel by Crank Sports for a few years now. On paper, i.e. their website, the product looks to cover most of the bases you'd look for in a gel. 150 calories, 37 grams of carbs, 230 grams of sodium, and 85 grams of potassium. But I have two questions. One, I don't see any certifications on their website. How much should I trust this product? And two, the brand in general seems confusing, being almost wholly independent with seemingly non-existent marketing. Few reviews appear on expected sites. More recent, last few years, interest in electrolyte needs of athletes and successes of folks like Element should, if anything, increase interest in e-gel. So why aren't they in the mix as much when it comes to gels?
I thought this was a phenomenal question. Number one,
Yeah.
because I have had more questions about the e-gels in the last 2 months than I have had in the last 7 years. So while Jamie feels like they're flying under the radar, I do see more people using the e-gels from Crank Sports. So it is becoming more popular because I have gotten a lot of questions. Secondly, I'm also fascinated that I am getting so many questions about it because she's not the only one who's been skeptical. I think this whole awesome sauce debacle is making us very, very skeptical of smaller brands, which we don't always have to be, right? And then also nutrition on a label that seems a little too good to be true. Like 37 grams of carbs in a gel with 230 milligrams of sodium is awesome. Like that is a great ratio for somebody who wants to get in more carbs per hour, who needs more sodium. We always say like 200 milligrams or more of sodium per gel is considered a high sodium gel. And there's not a ton on the market that meet that right now that are popular. So I get what people are saying. They're like, wait, why haven't you talked about this? Why aren't people talking about this? So I wanted to dive in a little bit more on this specific gel, and kind of look at it. So first and foremost, she was worried there was no like certifications on the website. So most gels aren't certified. Most gels aren't going to have an NSF or Informed Sport stamp on them. I have seen some that do, but the majority of them don't. So then the next thing you look at is when you look at their nutrition facts, does it say nutrition facts or does it say supplement facts? So theirs says nutrition facts. And then when you read down a little bit farther, you can see that they actually call that out. And they mention that their gel, it does have a nutrition facts label because it is classified as a food product by the FDA. So there is a higher amount of regulation on that specific gel than one that would have a supplement fact, right? So I think we can trust what's going on here, but taking that a level deeper is looking at the ingredients and seeing if the ingredients match up with the nutrition claims. So we talked about awesome sauce and how it didn't make sense, right? That apple juice and applesauce was equaling this amount of carbs when we looked at what an applesauce pouch had, right? So there was like some discrepancy between that. But when we look at where the carb is coming from in these e-gels, the first ingredient is maltodextrin. So maltodextrin is technically a complex carbohydrate versus like glucose or fructose, which is like a single carb. So maltodextrin is basically a ton of carbohydrates stuck together into one molecule. So what that means—
That's what our boy was eating. Ryan Hall was eating that straight out the bag.
Yeah.
And that's also what would be in a type of cyclic dextrin is what's in the Scratch high carb. The Morton drink mixes that have a ton of carbs in a small amount, that's maltodextrin. So we know that we can concentrate maltodextrin much higher in a gel and in a drink than we can sugar or fructose, honey, things like that. So without having GI issues. So it makes sense that if that's the first ingredient, that they could concentrate those carbs up higher. So to me, this seems legit. This, all seems fine. Some of the marketing on their website is a little funky because they really like to talk about it being a complex carb. And I've had a lot of questions about that. People are confused because when we think of complex carbs, we think of whole grains and quinoa and whole wheat bread and things that like slow digestion and keep us full longer. So people are like, what do you mean a complex carb is in here? But technically, that maltodextrin, because there's multiple carbohydrates on one molecule, is considered a complex carb, but it's actually broken down and empties our stomach and enters our bloodstream faster than sugar. So it's a little confusing to some people, right? But it is, I do believe that the gel is representative of what it's saying on there. I just personally think they probably don't have the marketing budget to push things out there. I know that the feed takes a cut of profits. Maybe they don't want to do that, so they're just selling it on their own website. So I just think it's a smaller company who's selling it by themselves instead of, pushing it other places is kind of my intuition there.
I do think I went to their website because I had never heard of them until this question came up. And I do see like why there's confusion in the marketing, especially because it's like touting low sugar, which like we know we want.
Yeah.
Like that's the fuel we want when we're out running really hard. Like sugar shouldn't be a concern really, I don't think.
Right. Right.
So it's interesting that like, I think you also see this like balance of people wanting to like take the carb intake during races and do what they're supposed to, but also be quote like healthy doing it. And so you have this like weird marketing situation where it's trying to appease everyone and it makes it more confusing if anything, I think.
I agree. I didn't love their marketing or website. It looks a little 1980s-esque, but it doesn't mean they don't have a good product. So if you're using it and you like it, I really think it's fine. Yeah.
So from what you can tell, and obviously you said you haven't tried it yet, but it seems like if it's working, there's no reason to change it. And especially if you can get that sodium in through a gel, I mean, that sounds ideal.
Right. I agree. It's another option, which is always good to have.
Okay. Good to know. Our next question is from Mackenzie. She said, hello, Fuel for the Soul crew. After listening to you guys for a while now, I understand the benefit of the carb load before a race. I'm wanting to know if carb loading guidelines change if the race you're planning to run isn't at, quote, race pace. I have a half coming up that I've been training for, and my goal is to run strong, but ultimately just finish the race. This is my second half, and my first half I've seriously dialed into nutrition. With that being said, I don't necessarily have a finish time or pace I'm shooting for. Let me know what you guys think.
Can I take a guess at this one, Feathers?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm going to relate this to recently when I ran the Berlin Marathon, and I knew I wasn't going to be, I hadn't trained. I knew I was just going to be pacing Aubrey. I knew I was going to be going at a much lower effort than I normally would. However, I was going to be out there longer.
Mm-hmm.
So even though maybe I wasn't going for a sustained high effort, performance, the fact that I was out there for an hour longer than I would in like one of my high effort marathons, that actually, I think you need those carbs just to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all on that. We talk a lot about how important carb loading is when we're aiming to race a half or a full, regardless of where our fitness at. If we're pushing our intensity up to our maximum for that particular distance, and it's over 90 minutes, arguably on anyone running a half as well, even if you're faster than that, that you're never not going to benefit from a carb load. So it's like, why not in some circumstances? But if somebody really doesn't like to carb load and they're like, do I really have to do this? Then we look at the biggest benefit of a carb load is for those longer races that we're holding a higher intensity, because we know the higher our intensity, the more we're relying on carbs. And our carbohydrate stores are finite, right? We have maybe 90 minutes of carbs that were stored if we carb load. So if we think about that, even if, like, say, I'm just going to guess she's out there for 2.5 hours. So if she's out there, like, a carb load isn't going to hurt. You know what I mean? Like, she's going to be able to have a lot of fuel on board, so she doesn't have to take a gel every 10 minutes to have enough carbs, So I think it's a no-brainer to do it. It's just, if you don't want to, I guess you could get away with doing less of one or not doing one if it's not a goal race, because it wouldn't necessarily matter if you run out of carbohydrate stores, because we can just slow down and use fat for fuel. But I don't know about you guys. Anytime I've kind of bonked in like a long run where I haven't taken enough fuel, Meg and I were texting about this weekend. We went out for a long run, and it was like, because we're running New York, and neither of us were being fairly intelligent and didn't fuel very much, or if at all, out there on a long run.
You guys are planning on doing a lower effort run.
But I felt terrible. I was like, that was stupid. Why didn't I even had a gel in my back pocket. I was like, why didn't you take that? Like, I was talking to somebody and just completely like spaced out and wasn't thinking about it. And I don't feel good like when I have to be running on fat. My brain gets negative. I feel really sluggish. I feel like my form suffers. So it's like, why not have carbs around, I guess is my point. Even if you're not racing it, you're probably going to feel better and your mental acuity is going to be better. So you're happier out there if you have those carbs around. But from a performance standpoint, it doesn't matter as much as if we're racing.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to my family this weekend about how we're like, quote, fun running New York. But I was like, they were like, so why are you still training? And I said, well, you still have to do all the things to enjoy the day.
Right.
Like, you're not going to have a good time running if you're not fueling, if you're not continuing your training. So you still, even if it's not a goal A performance, if you want to enjoy it, you might as well still do all the things like carb load and take your gels and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. We talk about this as far as training goes. So you do all of your training to get yourself ready for the race. You don't know what's going to happen that day. So you could have a day where you blow up, or you could have a day where you have a great day. But the fact of the matter is, the difference between if you show up prepared for a race or not prepared for a race. So even though you guys are running, and what is it? Your goal is
320.
320 is the goal. So to some people, that would be an all-out effort. For you guys, that's about 30 minutes off of your, most average marathons right now. So 30 minutes behind, it sounds like a lot, but it's still covering 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
Your body is still pounding the pavement for that thing. And I'm going to say the longer you're out there too, the rougher it is on your body. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're prepared and you're going to have stuff that's going to help you recover is probably a benefit.
And to be transparent, a 320 actually feels like race pace right now. I don't want anybody out there to think like, oh, a 320 is such a fun run for the Megs. Like that actually feels like it's going to take some effort here next weekend.
I love
And
it.
it's always an effort. Like even when we're having a great time out there, like we're doing that balancing act of like we don't want to be out there for a really long time on our feet, but we also want to have a really good time. So we'll figure out what that is on the day.
But see, I love hearing that because as you know, 320 is my PR in the marathon, and the fact that you guys can go out there, slap power up buttons, wave your arms around for 3 hours, and do that, knowing that there is some effort in there.
Yeah. Have you been practicing your
I haven't.
swings?
I should be doing some sort of lifting move.
Yeah,
Meg's got to get her 3-pound weights.
Yeah, you got to get those working.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the last 2 years, it was really hot 2 years ago, but there was points in both of those races that I was like, this is hard. I want it to be over. Yeah. Even though we were having fun, like it's not like it was a breeze out there. Like it was still a ton of work, especially with all those stinking hills and coming off of a goal race. And
you guys are going to have phenomenal weather this year because I'm not running it. And I know I'm going to be like, this would have been the year.
It's going to be in the 50s and 60s. I think it's not going to be awesome.
I think I saw 40s. It looks like Saturday night. It drops.
Okay. I hope you're right.
We'll see.
Good luck to you.
We do.
Okay. We really derailed that question, but I think, Megan, you answered it for Mackenzie. Okay. Let's get another one in here. This is from Blake McAllister from Austin, but grew up in Highlandtown. All right.
You guys, right?
Blake. Yeah. Thanks.
I wonder if Blake has a accent like the Holland town.
Maybe. I'm not going to attempt it though. Thanks for all the great weekly content. Even when the pod topic is not necessarily something I'm interested in, you all are always a fun listen. So thank you. I recently finished a training cycle and marathon, having completed the Santa Rosa Marathon at the end of August. Starting about halfway through the training cycle, I really embraced the quote, gel at the start of the run and every 30 minutes, and took that through the rest of the training cycle and then the race itself. Fueling wise, that worked very well for me. My question is, now that my body got accustomed to that fueling process, is that the new normal? If I'm going out for, say, an hour run, do I still need to be fueling at 30-minute mark, or is it really just on my long run, say 10 plus miles, that I should be keeping up the every 30-minute routine? I did take about 3 weeks either fully off or with very light running since the marathon. So did my body essentially reset in that time in the way it might or might not expected to be fueled? Interesting question.
Right. We'd never gotten this question before. So just in case it's on anyone else's mind, we do not gain a dependency on carbohydrates. So I think that kind of answers his question. Just because we're using carbs doesn't mean like we can't run without those carbs. Does that make sense? So for him, I would just recommend fueling for those long runs. Like if you're going out for an hour, you do not need to take a gel at 30. So we do know, obviously, fuel utilization, as we were just talking about, like is based on intensity and all that kind of stuff. And the duration that we're out there, our fuel needs are going to change based on climate and gender and genetics and all sorts of stuff, right? There's a million different ways. And when we really look at fuel utilization, it is incredibly complex. Like we very much simplify it here when we talk about it, but it is incredibly complex. What type of fuel we're using at what time and why, and how in the background. But for, all intents and purposes, like just because our body was used to taking fuel doesn't mean we can't perform in shorter periods without that fuel. So he's totally fine. Like I usually say 70 minutes or over, that's when we want to start fueling those long runs. And then get back to the every 30 minutes. I think it worked really well for he or she. So just keep that up.
Yeah, I was going to say for me, like when I'm doing, I don't even think about it on like my easy runs that are usually around an hour. Mm-hmm. And even if I was going to go do a 10-mile run and I'm just going to kind of like jog it and it's not going to be, even if it's over an hour and a half or whatever, I'm not really worried about fueling. When I start worrying about fueling is like when there's going to be some intensity in the workout, when or even like we did a 10K this past weekend, I made sure I took a gel before the 10K started. It's just that little security blanket of knowing that I've got that fuel ready to go.
Yeah, in a training block for sure. And then too, if you're eating enough before your run, you could easily go for 80-minute run and be fine without taking something out there. So part of it just kind of depends on like how was your fueling around that run too.
Yeah, I was gonna say grams before every run.
I've been eating
Any distance.
I've been eating
Right.
Meg's pretzels.
Oh,
Those are really good.
Okay, let's get in one final question here. This is from Mike Pastor from Pittsburgh.
This sounds like a guy.
He said, yeah, I'm going to say he, as a quote, Clydesdale runner, I love a good pastry. Then again, don't we all? Have you heard of legendary foods and their legendary pastries? The taste is amazing for 20 grams of protein, although very light on carbs. I was thinking that these would be a great part of the recovery process, but 0 grams of sugar seems too good to be true. I would love to hear your thoughts on the nutritional value on these, quote, upgraded Pop-Tarts and if they could be used as part of the nutrition plan. Love the pod. Keep on keeping on. I have never heard of these.
I was going to ask. I've had people put them on their food log, so I had to look them up. Yeah. So yeah, it's a Pop-Tart that is high protein. So I probably don't need to tell everyone this, that we are making everything into a high protein snack. I think the whole message on we need more protein as athletes, like the importance of getting that 20 to 45 grams of protein at every single meal based on our age and our weight. You know, there's a very strong message both from us and a lot of different people out there that most of us are not hitting our protein consistently throughout the day. We can't store protein in our bodies. So if we're really trying to recover and or put on muscle mass or maintain muscle mass, it's just very important that we hit our protein. So I think companies are monopolizing on this a little bit. I mean, there's protein chips. I saw protein pretzels the other day. There's protein cookies. Now there's protein Pop-Tarts. You can literally find anything. Protein wraps, you know, that is almost all protein and no carbs.
I saw a protein steak.
Well, duh.
Okay.
A steak is 100% protein. Well, fat too, but.
I like it when they do that to you on a box. Like it's like water. And it's like gluten-free.
Yeah. You're like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's natural. Yeah, naturally gluten-free. So when you look up these pastries, one pastry is 180 calories. There are 22 grams of carbs, 9 grams of fiber, 9 grams of sugar alcohols, and 20 grams of protein. So we've talked on here before, if somebody has like a very sensitive gut, that much fiber and sugar alcohols, it's not going to sit well. So if you're somebody who needs to watch those things, I would not try these. I have not tried them because of that. But
wait, is the sugar alcohol the whatever that is?
erythritol?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are they negating that from carbs? To
So,
make it, quote, net carbs.
Net carbs is probably what they're doing. So there is kind of an old adage of you can, quote unquote, subtract sugar, alcohols, and fiber from the carb content because we don't metabolize them the same and absorb them the same. So they're not 4 calories per gram, but they do have some calories per gram. So people dispute this in the nutrition world, whether we should or shouldn't subtract the fiber and the sugar alcohols, because there is some nutrition to them as far as calories go, but just not 4 calories per gram like a normal carb. So yeah, you take that or leave that as you will. But that's where the net carbs come from, is subtracting any fiber and any sugar alcohols from it. But if those things don't bother your stomach and you love protein and you don't mind paying the price for, they're very expensive, then maybe it is an okay thing to add in. It's just remember that this is our protein. This isn't our carbs, and we still need carbs to recover. So something like this would meet our protein needs, but we would still need to make sure we're getting some carbs too.
Can you remind me what sugar alcohols are?
So molecularly, they look like sugar. So they taste like sugar when we eat them. It makes things very, very sweet, but we actually can't break them down and absorb them the same. So what that means is they're not absorbed in our GI tract, which for most people, that means they ferment, which causes gas and bloating and sometimes frequent bathroom urges, because we just can't absorb them all. So they taste sweet, but we don't absorb the full amount of carbs that are in them.
And this is a natural occurring thing?
They make it in a lab, but I think it comes from, does it come from fermenting something? It comes from a quote unquote natural product, but does need to be created in a lab. Yeah.
It's the same stuff that's in Halo Top, right?
Yeah.
And those,
it's in a lot of stuff. It's in a lot of drinks. It's in a lot of stuff these days.
I tend to lean towards Mike's feeling that it seems too good to be true. Like, I don't know.
Do you think
something's not right?
Do you think it's like Seinfeld where Elaine was eating the yogurt and she thought it was fat-free and it wasn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the nutrition labels can be off by 20% and still be approved by the FDA. So, I mean, there certainly could be a piece of too good to be true in a lot of items, but Yeah.
Although I guess 20 grams of protein in 180 calorie Pop-Tart is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
it's not terrible.
Why not? Why not just get the protein from something else and eat a Pop-Tart?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, I guess if you love them, it's fine. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Megan
I'm
is
not going to get them.
No, I'm not
Megan
either.
has
But
made bagels now, made pretzels. Maybe it's time for a homemade Pop-Tart.
No, those are too complicated.
I've got a recipe for them.
Breads.
Yeah. Yeah. We call
Yeah,
them the
I
PR
can make
tarts.
some.
Yeah.
All right, people. I think that does it for today. Thank you all for submitting your questions, and especially when you make them funny. That's lovely. And for all the nice comments that you have on the podcast. We appreciate those as well. But if you have a question that we haven't answered, you can send us an email at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com, and we will answer it here on the show.
And to bring it back to the beginning, where we said that feathers could just go by feathers instead of feathers to nutrition, let us know what you think.
Leave a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feathers in all caps.
And I have to say, when I was in Chicago, every time I heard peas and carrots, it made me smile.
Yeah. There was a lot of peas and carrots.
So yell that out. I think we all turn our heads for that one.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
All right.
Oh, speaking of peas and carrots, what was the show that's from? Someone asked me the other day and I couldn't remember.
Oh, no. I think it was from...
I thought we played it
Schoolhouse
No, it-
Rocks or...
Oh, no, that
No?
wasn't. That's beans and rice.
Oh, okay.
The peas and carrots was from
I thought it was from
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Oh, Forrest Gump.
Like-
Okay.
Jenny and
Jenny,
I were like peas and carrots.
That's right. Okay, so whoever asked me that, hopefully you're listening and there's the clarification.
All right.
Just- you
On
quit
that
the
note,
take.
peas and carrots.
Bye.
Bye.
Could you replace it with like ecstasy and a Mountain Dew? Jamie Cortez.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Jamie. Give me some of them pre-workout razzle dazzle.
Yeah, he's like, that's already in the cart.
He's like, I already found that. Kendall's already DM'd me. I know what she's taken.
Which means that Jenny was like a worse carrot in the world that slept with all the other carrots and then got AIDS and came home and mixed back in with the peas.
Wow.
He still loved her so much. How sweet.
What a synopsis.
Do you also see butterflies and stuff when you take this?